People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal, Matt, is never to get someone to buy something based on what you have. Because let's be honest, every gym has the same stuff. They have weights, they have a staff, they have music, right? The goal is to get someone to buy something from you like a membership because they believe in what you believe in. And so if you really drill down to that experiences, you gotta be passionate about your brand first and foremost, or you won't sell a membership. Period.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today is an award-winning fitness expert and the Chief Operating Officer for the new boutique training concept, Volofit by Tough Mudder. He's a two-time published author, speaker, and has a track record in helping the fitness industry elevate their customer experiences, working alongside several well-known brands, including F45, Lifetime Fitness, and 24 Hour Fitness. In our interview, we discuss the increase in Me Too programming across the boutique sector, the things boutiques and big box gyms get wrong when hiring and coaching staff, the number one marketing strategy most gyms are not capitalizing on, and what the customer journey should look like to maximize sales. So please welcome the CEO of Volofit, Mr. Kory Angelin, to the Escape Your Limits podcast.
Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We are here to talk about the fitness industry, in particular the boutique market. And when I was driving in, I was listening to an audio, and it was quite funny, fairly up to date. And I was highlighting a few things from it, and it's quite an American thing. The Federal Reserve Chairman, which I guess is like the governor of the Bank of England in England, but he was kind of saying that the US economy is he thinks has been permanently damaged by the pandemic. And he was suggesting changes in remote working and restaurants and saying that companies still need to make large investments in technology to adapt to some of the challenges. I was interested in your thoughts about this because you was with a very big brand, F45, probably one of the biggest, I guess, now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would consider them. Yeah.
And you was with them sort of pre, during, and post-pandemic. From someone that's been really, I suppose, at a cutting edge of a large global boutique chain, how do you see that statement? You know, do you think the fitness industry are going to be affected as much as some of the other industries, people working from home, etc., or do you think that we're fairly resilient against a lot of these ups and downs? What's your views on that, Kory?
Yeah, I think we're really resilient. I don't buy into the fact that we're going to see a dip. And I mean, certainly in the short term we have. It also depends what state you're in America, right? There are states that are thriving nowadays, and there are some states that aren't. I do consider myself battle tested during COVID, having overseen many different studios. And I would say the one thing that we can definitely say is it brought some light to digital fitness. Digital fitness is here to stay. And I think the more not only big box, but boutique studios that adapt some sort of version of that, I think we'll be better off for it. But at the end of the day, I spent some time at Les Mills, which is one of the leaders in group fitness many years ago. I worked for them. And they used to say one thing, and nothing beats an in-person experience. And so that's really when I flipped the switch in terms of thinking about what is that in-person experience. Post-pandemic, it doesn't matter. People want to be in a community so long as it's safe, obviously, especially now more than ever. But, and so we learned some lessons, I think, for the better. Digital fitness is here to stay, but at the end of the day, people want to work out and they want to go somewhere to do that.
And do you see anything in terms of the people that are or are not coming back? What sort of things are you seeing in the US, or again, is that state to state?
There's an element of state to state to that, sure. I think digital fitness really prolonged people coming back. There's a certain percentage of that population that continues to do that, but it's very hard, right? I mean, even hardcore workout people like yourself, Matt, I'll pay a good compliment because look like you're always in shape. But I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you want to be motivated and you want results. It's hard to do as a standalone digital fitness platform from home. Doesn't mean you can't. I always believe that platform should be a supplement to what you also do in studio. And so, I think the percentages will tick up. I think right now in our portfolio at Volofit, we're at about 85% to 90%, depending on where you're at in terms of people returning, which is fantastic, right? And so now it's about perfecting what that looks like and not only paying attention to new member acquisition and how we do that, with marketing specific to what's going on in the world. But how do you retain those people? Because a lot of times we talk about how do we get leads? How do we get members? What drives me up the wall is how do you keep them? That's why attrition is so bad in fitness. We don't pay attention to that. So I think it's a little bit of everything.
Why do you think that some of the boutiques have done quite well through this? Because I would have thought, well, I did think for quite a while that they'd be the first ones to probably disappear. And yeah, that doesn't seem to be the case for some of the better run boutiques.
Oh, absolutely. The friends of mine when the pandemic that were so concerned about me and boutique fitness, I called them now and I just said, I told you so. I actually was never worried, and here's why. What boutique fitness offers, and you're talking to a guy that's been in big box gyms and started as a trainer like most people and worked my way into the management side of the business, but really, and there's a passion even to this day in terms of big box and what it offers, but boutique fitness is really scalable, right? You have a smaller membership base with that comes a smaller footprint. And so, you're not catering to 15,000 people. And so what happened during the pandemic is we immediately pivoted to digital fitness platforms. I think in the first 6 months, we were retaining anywhere from 60 to 70% of the membership base that were continuing to pay, to not only support their home studio, but also they were getting good workouts, but they were getting good workouts from the actual coaches that were teaching it, right? Some of the issues the big box gyms had were they were kind of generic, and I give them all the credit in the world. But if my home boutique studio down the road, if my coach is John, I could still continue to coach with John digitally. And that's where boutique really thrived, was they became really scalable, they adapted really quickly, and they still made it about the same community.
Right. Yeah, I've not thought about it like that, but I suppose in a big box, and I generalize when I say a lot of this stuff, but in a big box, you probably don't know the name of too many people in there. I guess with the boutique, that one of the things they go out of their way is, the coach and the people on the front, and they know you. So I suppose that sort of community and personalization is already there when they're like, oh, would you like to train with Mary or Fred today? Whereas the big box is like...
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the learning lessons I learned. I mean, listen, it was a big leap for me to go from working for some of the top big box brands in the world to then just say, hey, I'm going to go to boutique fitness. And I didn't even know what that was about. I thought it was sort of like group fitness classes and something that I never used to do. I mean, I like HIIT training and functional training, but I would go and do what most guys do, chest and biceps every other day. But really what I learned is that first of all, it's about who's driving that market, right? And so it's millennials and Gen Z. And what we know about millennials and Gen Z, which I am a Gen Zer still, I'm assuming you are too, is that they like a couple of different things. They love the look and the feel of a place. Right? That's very important to them. What I also learned is something that I'm really passionate about. When
you say that, what do you mean? They just like going into physical locations?
Exactly. But the look and the feel, everything from the sound to the lighting to the equipment to just what it viscerally feels like when you go in. And there's been a lot of competitive analysis I've done over the last 5-6 years. And that's what drives me is walking into a place and not only understanding what the experience is like, but how do I feel when I'm in here? Quite honestly, a lot of times I walk in a place, it feels like a doctor's office. That's not good. I don't get motivated from that. And what we know is a lot of people years ago migrated from big box to go to boutique because of two reasons: lack of motivation and lack of results, right? And they go hand in hand. No one has ever came up to me and said, I'm leaving a big box gym because my trainer has gotten me in amazing shape. I love everything about the gym. I don't mind the price point, but I'm going to leave. That doesn't happen. They leave because there's an element that's missing. And it could be any of those different cogs in the wheel.
One of the things I know you've done a bunch of videos. You've got an interesting YouTube channel, but I was watching some of the stuff on experience, which I thought was quite interesting. It's one of the things that as a company we believe in. You can have great trainers and great equipment on their own, but it's about creating that environment where you go and you sort of immerse yourself in it. How do you, in your business, define experience? What are some of the key components that make that up?
Oh man, Matt, how much time do we have? Do we have enough time? Because this is really my mindset for the last, I'd say, several to 10 years is, early on in my career, I was a trainer. I was fortunate to be successful. Whether that was luck or not, I'm not sure. but I always did well at sales. And I always thought to myself, like, I went to school to be a sports medicine therapist. That was my degree. At no point did I walk into my biomechanics class and my professor said, we're gonna learn how to close a deal today. That just didn't exist. And so when I reflected back on it, I said, why was that? And the reason why I was successful, and I believe a lot of trainers are, is really because they provide a great experience. So when you think about what does that mean, right? A great experience means from the minute a person, or as we call it, a lead, calls into your gym or studio, everything that happens from that moment on is part of that experience. And everything from learning the person's name to understanding their needs analysis to if they come to a trial of yours, do you give them a tour? Is it a museum tour, which drives me up the wall? You know museum tours, right? In the old days, they'd walk you through every single part of the gym. And I always used to say, I only use 2 parts of the gym. Show me where the free weights are and like an occasional treadmill. I don't need to see your pool. But that's how the salespeople are trained. It's not really personal. And so when I thought about a great experience, it's gotta be personal, right? It's gotta be a personal experience. If you don't understand why that person would join in the first place, you are absolutely missing the point. And over the years, and having done a ton of role play, which is one of my favorite things to do, you would be surprised, or maybe not, how many people fail to even gather the basic information. And you know, one thing I would always recommend is Simon Sinek, who's a famous business leader. And, you know, I stumbled upon a TED Talk. It's one of the early TED Talks. It's very famous. It's called The Golden Circle. Mm-hmm. But Simon Sinek in it says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That is a creed that I have followed the last 10 years. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal, Matt, is never to get someone to buy something based on what you have. Because let's be honest, every gym has the same stuff. They have weights, they have a staff, they have music, right? The goal is to get someone to buy something from you like a membership because they believe in what you believe in. And so if you really drill down to that experience is you gotta be passionate about your brand first and foremost, or you won't sell a membership, period. Next, you have to understand that it's about the customer. Stop throwing up everything about your product and service. We get it, man. We offer great stuff. I get it. But you don't have to spit it out in the first 10 seconds on a call with a new potential member, right? And so take a breath, talk about the customer, make it 80, 90% about them, and then lead back to you as the solution. Those are the components to me that make a great brand and a great experience.
So you mentioned sales, and one of the things that I guess the boutiques, or some of the boutiques have done differently, some of them have actually removed the sales team. Some of them have removed them and put them back, and some of them kind of done a hybrid where they've got some of the people that are working in there to do the selling as well. I know you've got some great sales material. You've even got a book which is called Sell Out.
Yes.
So obviously sales is quite important to you. How do you feel about sales in the traditional format to boutique? And also, I'll go on to that because I interviewed Angel Banyos just a couple of weeks ago where he was saying, we're just going to get rid of all of our salespeople, simplify the process and put the energy and the resources into the areas that make a difference to the client. What's your views on that?
So here's a great point, and you bring up obviously a past guest who's phenomenal in the business as well. And I sort of agree, and there's some points to learn from that, but let's define salesperson. So Matt, would you consider a trainer part of the sales process?
Well, for me, I would agree that, and you can say, well, what does actually sales mean? I suppose.
Sure, we can do right a little bit more.
But I would say that if sales is kind of explaining what you're doing and helping the prospect client to make a really, really good informed decision, then yes, a personal trainer should be able to do that. A lot of personal trainers feel as though they're not salespeople and they feel that's unnatural. But as does my wife, and yet she's a fantastic salesperson. Exactly. She likes helping people. She doesn't like selling, and I suppose that seems to be where the industry sort of gets a little bit stuck.
Yeah, and you need people to tell people like myself, and I'm not afraid to tell people whenever I walk into a studio or a big box gym, if I'm teaching the staff there, is that we're all salespeople at some level. That's the bottom line. And so you need to understand that first, because if you don't understand that, people get scared of that word. I hate selling, but I never sell. I provide a great experience. I could care less what the price is, because at the end of the day, it's about, I believe in my services. Like, I'm a great trainer. That's the truth. And so why should I be afraid of talking about how much it costs to train with me? And so, it's interesting, when I came over to Volofit, I talked to the CEO, who's a good friend of mine, Britt, and he's like, listen, your focus is operations. And I go, I know. And I go, do you know that one of the most important pieces of the puzzle to operating a great studio is understanding your sales cycle? And so although I talk a lot about sales, for me, I don't think of it like that. I think of it, any great operating studio, what you'll find, not 100% of the time, but most, is that they have an unbelievable onboarding experience. You could call that the sales experience. I don't care what you call it, but there's an element of sales there, right? You have to talk to a customer, and then at some point you got to pitch a membership. And so you can make that really, really personal and really make it feel good. Or, no offense to used car salespeople, but you can make it like trying to sell a car. And so what I've learned is that whether you have a sales associate or a general manager or a head coach, it doesn't necessarily, there is no right or wrong into what your staff should be. There's no absolute solution to it. Boutique has a little bit more wiggle room, smaller footprint like we talked about, but at the end of the day, everyone is part of that process. Now, the great thing about what I do is I'm able to help tailor that specific process where everyone's involved in the sales process, right? But it doesn't feel like that to them.
So how do you get over the face-to-face over people just buying online? I guess people we had ClassPass on a few weeks ago as well, where I suppose that's just all digital, isn't it? Can you transfer that same idea digitally, or do you need to kind of get them in and then go through it?
The experience, again, nothing beats the in-person experience like we talked about. So the question is, how do you get them in when there's a lot of other offerings? You know what it is? It's not rocket science. We call them, right? The lost art of calling in, whether it's boutique or big box, is crazy. We've replaced that with text messaging. And the real answer is, and there's some great automations that we use to help get in touch with customers, right? I mean, listen, the general statistic is it takes 10 to 15 times to get a hold of a lead or to get them in the door, but it's true. And so a couple of things that people need to be aware of is, don't be shy to pick up the phone and call someone. Now, when you do get someone on the phone, to get them in. Because at the end of the day, I always say, Matt, sales is about making it as easy as possible for someone to say yes. That's bottom line. That's my mantra when it comes to trying to get a new member, is make it as easy as possible. So how do you do that? It's by asking powerful questions. Now, I've learned powerful questions do three things. Number one, they can overcome an objection before it even happens, right? And so if you called up a customer right now to try and get them into your 7-day trial or 2-day trial, whatever it is, there are some questions you could ask right now, so later on you don't hear those common objections. Like Matt, you won't hear, I want to think about it, or I want to talk to my spouse. She makes all the financial decisions. There are questions you could ask. I would ask you, Matt, who supports you in this decision in maybe joining a gym? And you might say your wife, right? Great. What's your wife's name?
Wendy.
So Wendy's not going to be pissed, Matt, when you come home and you're like, I joined the gym because my goal is to lose 5 pounds. I'm going to be ripped. She's not going to be pissed, right? So powerful questions could overcome objections. Another thing powerful questions could do is plant seeds. So for me, I don't like sounding salesy, but I do like planting seeds. Instead of saying have you ever worked with a trainer before? To me, it feels like you're trying to sell me training. I teach our people to say something more or less like, hey, so Matt, it sounds like you're looking for more consistency in the program moving forward. Is that it, right? Exactly, right? And then the last thing a powerful question can do, and it's most important, this is the most important to me, is it activates the decision-making part of the brain, and that just means it's simply emotional. Joining something or spending money is an emotional act. And so it's 90% emotion, right? And so if you could connect personally, which again, a text message is hard to do, right? You have a better likelihood of that person saying yes to not only coming into your studio or gym, but buying a membership at that point. So at the end of the day, we need to call people, follow up with a text, and then continue that process until we get a hold of them. And what we learned is we get a hold of people. People want to talk about their goals. They just don't want to be sold.
So you think you're, in terms of your experience then, is the salespeople, whether that's a trainer or an actual salesperson, getting people on the phone and trying to get them coming in is an important part of the process?
Absolutely, but it does, and if you think about that formula, how that call goes, It should be all about a person first. So what's your goal? Why is it your goal? What have you been doing in the past? Who's your support system? How motivated are you? You know, all those great questions, some qualifying questions. Then you lead back to you, because you could talk about your product or service for the next 24 hours. It doesn't matter if you don't know why someone would want to join in the first place. And so I've role played with people in the past where they spent 17 minutes talking about how great their program is. And then I would stop them and go, great, what's my goal? And they'd be like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, don't you find that weird? And I think maybe it's the trainer in me my whole life. Like, I mean, have you ever worked with a trainer, Matt? You look like you have, right? Would it be weird if you paid a trainer to train you, but that trainer never asked you what you're trying to work on? It'd be weird. We do this in the fitness industry all the time. Boutique fitness, big box gyms. We tour people and we call people, and we're great at talking about ourselves. But what I would advocate is spend more time on the person and understanding why they would want to join in the first place.
Yeah, and that's one of the things for some of the boutiques that I've been in and around. I suppose some of that can kind of get a little bit lost. It's like, well, why are you actually coming here? Or what are you selling? And it kind of leads me on to this sort of marketing question, which I was going to come to, but I'll bring it up now. So in terms of you talk a lot about using digital marketing, Facebook, the success of things like Instagram, YouTube. I'm clearly a big believer in that. So in terms of the sales funnel, how do you then kind of bring people in? Let's focus on the boutique at the moment. So you've got a boutique business. How do you bring them in using some of those different, or what place do some of those different digital things play in that process? And then when does the call come into play, and is that conditional depending on what people have done prior to that? It's quite a lot there, but
no, certainly the landscape has changed, as you know. And here's what I've learned is that yes, there's a place to pay companies to do your digital advertising. You need that, and regardless of the climate, and now we're not seeing as many leads come in the industry as before the pandemic, of course, but you still need it, right? But there's nothing that replaces an organic piece of content. And so where I think the industry is headed is more YouTube, second largest platform in the world, right? Search platform in the world, and very rarely used by companies, individuals.
I was very surprised actually when I look at all the big brands. There's very few that do YouTube well. The ones that do YouTube well, I would say, are the sort of millennial businesses that are very sort of grassroots, doing a great job, but anomalies. Any of the big brands, they're just shocking when you look at what they do.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, this spawned from, myself. And when I started to create content, I was all about, it's got to be professional. Like I would look at it, erase it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to need a Shure microphone that costs $1,000. And what I learned though is that our head coaches or our general managers, the boots on the ground in our studios, they would just throw up a post in front of the studio and it would get 10 times more engagement than any other professional post that we would do. And
I can, for anyone who's listening about marketing, we've tested this. We've spent thousands and thousands on both videos. And you're absolutely right. The one on the camera will outperform a video that costs 10 grand to produce, which is quite surprising.
It's unbelievable. And until you go through that evolution and see it happening. And so, I have head coaches that were like, listen, we're going to film some stuff. Just trust us. We'll turn it over to you guys and just boost it. And that's actually turned into quite a few leads. But not only just from, we tend to think about Facebook, Instagram, right? One of the things we did at F45 was we had a change in mindset because, as you know, during the pandemic, we weren't spending thousands of dollars on digital advertising. We sort of shut that off. And so we were forced to do organic stuff. And so, you'd be surprised though, on a daily basis, the coaching that we had to do with our studios, even now, which is when someone follows you, they are a lead. And so we started to not only were able to pivot and get engagement. So if someone followed your Instagram feed, we would then direct message them back and they become part of the sales funnel. And so, it's a change in mindset, but leads don't just call. I wish leads were like the old days where they would walk-ins, and just call, but those days are over. They happen still, depending on where you're at. But other platforms I really looked at, like LinkedIn. I don't, you find,
consumer.
yeah, for lead generation, you find another professional. I'm going to say I'm the only one that has not only written about using LinkedIn as a lead generator, but continuously preach about it. I've done a lot of content on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a great platform to search for a local company in your community. When you do that, you have a list of employees that work there, and you can message them for free. Where else can you do that, right? And then YouTube, just to engage your audience on a continual basis, and it's long format, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, which is what you can't do on Instagram. So social has changed, but I think it's a lot better nowadays to think in terms of lead generation using all those platforms, not just be so narrow-minded to the ones we used to use.
Right. And I saw on your LinkedIn, you do some interviews or testimonials with clients, which is quite powerful. Is there any other things that you found have been successful from a lead generation outside of some of the sort of traditional things that you would see, like a testimonial or a tour or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and what we know is nothing beats a great testimonial. Mm-hmm. And so, pulling an organic piece of content from a member, pull them outside the studio. What do you love about the workout today? We recently had someone in Arizona. It was her 500th workout with us at Volofit. And it was just inspiring.
I watched that one actually, yeah.
Yeah, it was just inspiring. I mean, you can't fake it, right? So listen, you could do anything on social media nowadays, but to have a member talk about how she's been coming 500 times is pretty powerful.
All right.
So it comes down to organic. 80% of your content, I believe, should be organic. 20% should be professional and just support everything else you're doing in the studio.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code dumbbell. That's escapefitness.com using the code dumbbell. That's it from me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview.
So when you do your LinkedIn, your YouTubes, how does that? Where are you driving people to then to get the? Do you eventually sort of have a process where you get them to a lead page to get their number to call them, or what?
It'll be a MindBody lead page typically, right. Or obviously your Instagram studio. I love Instagram as a platform, no surprise there. But it's so easy. It's so easy for the GM or the head coach to manipulate who's in charge of that, and then just engagement, right? Half of social is being engaged with the audience. It's one of the things I learned. I put out all this content, and I would just, people would DM me, and I just didn't have time to do anything and get back to them. But that's not what you do on social media. And so I think nowadays it's all about engaging with the audience, funneling them down to your studio page. So there's a call to action so they could take advantage of some sort of trial or membership or something like that.
So how would you do it if you have a lot of locations? So in the F45 case, would you have your brand page where you would kind of be managing different testimonials, brand story, etc., and then would you take people to your local geographical one?
Yeah, it's interesting. The corporate aspect of it is a little bit more general, right? But what I spend most of my time doing is coaching the owners of the franchises, because they need a lot of help, right? They need a lot of help in terms of they're not social media savvy many times. Sometimes they don't even know the fitness business. They invested in fitness and they hire the right people, but at the end of the day, they need to learn that type of stuff. So it's funneling them into the specific studio. And so you have your main message, obviously from a corporate standpoint. Each studio, depending upon where they're at, might be different in terms of their trial. One might have a 2-day trial or 7-day, but it's really about the trial, not about specifics, right? And so then it's about the call to action and what they're doing on a studio basis, because the markets are different depending on what state you're in.
So from your perspective, there'll be sort of more of a generic brand message, and you would be encouraging the local ones to take a more personalized local approach with their own Instagram, YouTube, whatever pages themselves would you?
Yeah, I really try to coach to start thinking about YouTube. I mean, gosh. I believe you're going to see a big uptick over the next couple of years in terms of the use of YouTube with companies like we talked about. The great thing about boutique is, you do have that one-on-one time with the owner. Because at the end of the day, listen, they make the decisions. I could strongly recommend what they do, but I can't tell them what to do. And so when I was with Big Box, it was great. But at the end of the day, I think one of the reasons why I left is it's hard to make an imprint in a big box gym, especially with some of the biggest brands out there, right? I don't call the CEO up and go, look, I want to change this. Like that doesn't happen, right? There's a lot of processes that must be met. Boutique's different. And so you could be a little bit more creative on that front. And so that's what I love about it. And what we started to do now over the last year or two is teach them a little bit more savviness around social and how to take ownership of that and be responsible as well.
You've got a YouTube video about the difference between big box and boutiques. How would you describe that now? I suppose post pandemic. How do those two businesses fare? Because we interviewed Angel, and it was quite interesting because the way they put it over the department store concept and creating these sort of mini boutique experiences. I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense for the price that you would pay. It is a compelling story, although it's a big investment to get something like that set up. With you being involved on both sides, how will you, without obviously sort of just pushing your own brand as well, but impartially, how would you sort of assess those two in the world we are today?
There's a place for both. There always will be. I think one of the things I looked at a couple years ago was, 2019 maybe, 46%, almost half the population's gym memberships were boutique memberships. And so you start to think about, well, why is that? And what we learned is lack of motivation, lack of results is some easy things to point to. But you'll notice big box gyms are adapting a lot of what boutique offers now. And so what Big Box is doing now is creating boutique experiences within the walls of the big box gyms, which I think is smart. And so you might walk into a cycle room in a big box gym, whereas before it might have had the same lighting as the regular part of the gym and just the bikes there. Now it's different paint color, different lighting, different sound system. It's a boutique feel. And so I don't view one better than the other. I'm more passionate about boutique because I am more visceral in the business. I like that. I like walking in somewhere and I'm like, wow, this is, and quite frankly, I think Orange Theory were the trendsetters with that. Certainly you had CrossFit that I think opened the doors to people in terms of boutique atmosphere. But Orange Theory had that, when you walk in, you had that look and the feel. And I think, a lot of people followed that formula. Smart, and it's smart. And it's smart for us to do the same in terms of what we're trying to create. But that's the biggest difference, I think, is it's just, again, it comes down to boutique. You could do a lot more in terms of scale. And so whether it's pivoting during COVID or you want to change the look and the feel of the studio, financially, it's a lot easier. You can't do that in a big box gym. You just can't.
There's definitely ability to be a lot more nimble, which I think in today's world, listening to that interview I was earlier, it's really a time where businesses need to be able to anticipate a rapidly changing environment, but to be able to probably move there pretty quickly. And I suppose for a big established business that's really sort of married to a concept, it's very difficult to make that change, isn't it?
Oh, very difficult. I mean, I wish it wasn't so difficult. At the end of the day, and listen, I still have my big box memberships. And so I still love going there. But again, it's also, which is one of the other main drivers of boutique, is community feel. So, and we haven't touched a lot on that, but certainly it's the community first and foremost why I think boutique stands out, right? And to your point earlier, like you don't know everyone in your big box gym. You do know everyone in your boutique studio. And listen, there's nothing wrong. They're two different models. But if you were to ask me, why are so many people driven to boutique? It's because of that. It's not just the look and the feel, although we're talking about it. It's that you know all the coaches, you know all the members. I mean, I don't live in our studios now, but I do travel around the country and visit them. And even now, I've only been to some of our studios, a couple of times now. I go in and I know members already. So imagine when you're going there 5, 6, 7 times a week, You know everyone. And it's unbelievable, the community aspect to it. And so that's what I love about it. And again, that fits in with your onboarding experience, because is your experience personal? Because I can tell you this, your membership is. And so if you're not marrying the two, you're missing out.
So it's interesting you talk about community, because you've come from F45, which clearly does a great job at community. I wouldn't say their gyms are the most impressive experience I've ever been. You know, they're pretty basic. They're plain walls and some equipment in there, but they've done an awesome job at community and an awesome job at growing. So they're doing something right there. But the other brand which Volofit is part of is Tough Mudder.
Yep.
And I suppose they're another brand that's done a fantastic job at creating communities. Is there anything that you've taken with Volofit and also the Tough Mudder studios? Is there anything that you've taken from what Tough Mudder had created in terms of community and brought any of that into the bricks and mortar space?
That's the main driver, was the community feel. And it's interesting, like, I'm a big experienced guy, but our CEO, Britt, well, he was an owner of some of the Tough Mudder franchises. And so it was good one to see when I started to interview for Volofit, that you have a CEO that was also an owner. For me in boutique, that is the holy grail, because it's hard. Listen, there's nothing bad or wrong about an owner investing in a fitness franchise. It happens all the time. If I'm being honest, does it help if you understand the business or have been in the business? Certainly, it's not the end all be all. But what he noticed is he was attracted to the community feel of what Tough Mudder offered. I mean, that is their basis, right? And so that spawned into just what, studio fitness for Tough Mudder meant. And, we like to say it's Volofit by Tough Mudder, because this is a powerful brand, the Tough Mudder brand. What we did notice was the name itself might have turned some of the segment of the population off. If I'm being honest, not everyone is doing an outdoor obstacle course. I wish more did. But it is one of the biggest brands in the world when it comes to outdoor workouts. So we just took that, refined it, made it a little bit more premium-like in terms of the look, the feel, what you get when you walk into a Volofit. And so that's what we learned, though. It still comes down to that community feel.
And what makes that then? Is there any special ingredients that you've found that's really helped create that community? Because it's certainly not easy. Many brands try to do that. Huge brands pump millions into it and they fail miserably. So what have you learned, I suppose, as Kory, as an individual, about how to create that community?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, because I do consider myself an expert. Now, if you ask my wife, she'll say, can't you keep one job? And what I tell her is, you don't understand the fitness industry. Right? I don't know anyone that's been at one gym for 10, 20 years. But really, my career has been, fortunately, moving up the ladder. And to do that, the byproduct of that is you're with multiple brands. That's a badge of honor for me, because I bring a lot of experience. And so if I'm being honest, I just took what the last 20 years, were like for me in the industry, took all of the things I loved about the brands, took all of the things I think we needed to work on, and sort of brought that to Volofit. So if you were to ask me what I think the 3 key ingredients are to a fitness franchise, specifically Volofit, number 1, it's the programming. First and foremost, right? And so our director of fitness is a name brand in the industry. More importantly than that, her name is Caitlin Donato. More importantly than that, she understands programming and what that means from a consumer standpoint. Is it scalable? Is there a variety of workouts? What does it entail, right? So it's programming. Number 2, it's the look and feel of the studio. I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention things like it's the lighting, it's the sound, it's the layout, certainly the equipment, right? All of that's very, very important. Not everyone nails the mark on that. Many try, not everyone does. Then third, it's what does your staff look like in terms of the makeup of their titles? Is there a GM running the show? Do you have clear definitions of roles and responsibilities? But more so than that, where I come into play is, what is the coaching like? So like, how do we coach our staff? Is there continuing education? Is there role play? Are there, all of those things is what I'm passionate about. One of the things that frustrated me in my previous roles, 10, 20 years ago is that lack of support. Because when you would do an exit interview with someone, most of the time they would say, I'm leaving because there's just a lack of support or lack of growth. And so one of the things I was really adamant about when I came to Volofit is I want my hand in building what it looks like for an employee. Is there growth potential? And can we have a hand in building out support for them? That means an LMS platform and digitally, right? But it also means me visiting a studio and role playing with them. That is one of the most fantastic things I get to do right now is be on the ground, walk in, help studio staff members, and they really appreciate that. And so I think those are the three key ingredients on what we do specifically, but what I think any fitness franchise should focus on.
So I'll pick up two of those. The first one, I'll start with programming. I guess when Boutique first came out, it was probably a little bit easier to come up with a concept and stand out. So you get a lot of group cycling, and over time, they kind of merge into one. If you took the name off some of them, it's like, oh, that's a bit like this one, kind of, isn't it? You know, they even with the products that some of them put in there. And then you've kind of got your sort of HIIT studio and then your boxing studio. I suppose over time, can you sort of see that some of these are starting to kind of merge into almost like someone could just buy them all up and flip them and turn them into these mega brands quite easily because they're all really pretty much the same, and that unique. Yes, they've all got good lighting, they've got good training, but they're all doing the same thing. So do you see a point where there's just competition, where how many more cycle studios can we deal with? And to that, where do you see, or do you see programming as a way to differentiate or not?
I do. And you bring up some great points because first of all, what's interesting now is cycle studios actually just don't do cycling anymore. There are some brands out there that mix and match cycling with a TRX class. And so I think they recognize, obviously, over the last decade that you can't just cycle because they need to adapt with the rest of the industry. And so for me, programming means variety. Variety means to me, when it comes to programming, a lot of the stuff I've learned in the past why people leave Boutique. So they leave because it's just one thing. What I loved about the programming at Volofit, if I'm being specific, was that it centers around 4 areas of fitness. Now it's not rocket science at the end of the day, but if you take endurance, strength, power, and agility, those are sort of our 4 pillars. Number 1, I need to be passionate about that, right? I'm going to be selling the brand myself and help operating it. And it's all of the areas of fitness that I work on myself. Now, I would also argue that a lot of people also do that. I mean, endurance, strength, power, and agility. The ones that don't, I always believe they want to, they just don't know how. And so for me, when it comes to programming, it has to center around a belief system. Our belief system are those 4 core values of fitness. And so to me, that's the starting point. After that, it's about the variety of, right? So we have too many to count, a million workouts. I don't think that means anything to you, but we do. Because there are brands out there that sometimes will get members from there saying, I'm bored. And we don't want people to be bored. Does it still happen? Sure. That's the way people are. They get bored of things quite easily. But we learned from a lot of other brands, much like a lot of the successful brands do now. And so it has to center around a core value. But at the end of the day, you also have to believe in it.
So with what you guys are doing, then there's a seemingly perception of variety. So because even the way some of them are designed, it's like, look, you've kind of got these 2 bits of equipment, and whatever we do is going to be around them. It's not a lot of variety, and I guess you can change that, which you obviously can, but it still seems as though if I go there, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be rowing and running or something.
And not only that, yes. What drew me to Volofit was the technology as well. So, listen, you could look at probably any major statistic and it'll say HIIT training and wearable technology or fitness technology are always at the top of the top 10 trendiest things to be in, right? And so I feel really good about HIIT training because I like that type of training myself. It's functional, it's scalable, all that stuff. But even that aside, having the monitors that we have where we're cueing people what to do visually, because most people are visual, right? And so you could have that variety of workouts in our studios, but you could also, it's very palatable to understand. You could have a person that's never worked out before, working out next to someone who's been in the business for 40 years and get the same out of the workout, despite what your fitness level is. And so the technology is great because you're looking at someone doing that particular exercise for that particular station. It's easy. It's an easy concept. And it's also easier for the coach to coach the person. You know, how many times have I walked over to someone and said, hey, I need to correct your squat. Great, do this. And then I turn away and they just screw it up again, right? But when you have that monitor in front of you, that face-to-face, you see that visual. So there's a lot of moving parts there, but it's such a simple concept for a consumer. And so I think that's what drives us and a lot of people in the franchise fitness industry.
Is that something that you created yourselves, or are you using somebody else's system?
No, Caitlin came up with some proprietary technology for us, which is really, really great. Certainly, I come from another great company, F45, that has technology like that. You know, you'll start seeing that trend, I think, more and more as more, different kinds of boutique studios open up, because how can you not? That's where we're at now, right? It's not just social media stuff, it's technology, right? And so I love that aspect. It's one of the reasons that drew me to the brand. For me, it was about those three things we talked about. Listen, I've been in almost every boutique studio you could possibly imagine. First, I love to competitively shop around. So when I travel, I try to go, here and there and see what that experience is like. But for me, it was about the programming, the look and the feel of the studio. I just love the concept of what we've created. And then certainly, the staff and how we do that onboarding experience. And there's a certain way we do that, which is what I love and what I have a hand in, which is what my passion, what drives me in terms of, what I do at Volofit.
So in terms of people, which you said was the second important thing, I guess if you're employing the people, it's a little bit easier to manage the standard. You guys are looking to open a lot of locations, and now, particularly now, staff are very difficult to get hold of, particularly good ones. So if it's a regular big box gym franchise, a little bit easier to do, whereas what you're doing is you've got a lot of highly skilled people. How are you managing that? And because that's got to be a limiting factor of how quickly you can expand, isn't it?
Sure, there's pros and cons. So I always say this, another great brand I think that's out there is Lifetime. I got my start with Lifetime. I always say, if you ever want to learn the business of fitness, work at a Lifetime. I mean, I had 45 trainers on staff, and that's just the fitness side of the business. It's like a city inside of a Lifetime. And so, that's challenging, right? We're always hiring. The pro, and that's a pro for a fitness boutique studio, because we only need 5 or 6 coaches. Now, the con to that is you need 5 to 6 really good coaches. And it takes time to coach them, especially if you're not coming from the boutique kind of way of training people. So, it's been challenging. So what are the easy answers? Again, not rocket science here, but engaging people, other fitness influencers or coaches on social media. First thing we do is we follow people in the community. And so that's been really profitable for us. Quite honestly, that's where we get 50% of our people. And then asking members. They're your best resource for not only referrals, but referrals for employees. And so we've done a good job of really asking for qualified people that might be interested in coaching at a boutique studio like Volofit. And so I think you start there, right? Certainly Indeed and LinkedIn, things like platforms like that. Again, it's like digital advertising. It's never going to go away. But really, you could be more organic in the way you search for them, because it is tough out there, certainly.
And with the responsibility of training, is that, so your business is a franchise business, is that something that you manage yourself as the brand and take responsibility of kind of maintaining that level, or is it something that your franchisees will do on a state-by-state basis? Yes.
Yeah, the most exciting part for me and why I came to Volofit was to create what that training looks like, right? And so ultimately, we're in the process of building our studio headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're going to open in about 2 months, which is great. And so moving forward, we're going to have what we call induction, or, the first week that an owner who buys into one of our franchises they'll meet at our headquarters, much like a lot of other brands do. And we come in and we train them. So everything you need to know about what you need to do to operate your studio is provided during that week. There's also a digital platform that will support that in the way of content and videos. And then when we ship them off to their territory, there is a continued support aspect, and that usually comes from me as well as the digital aspect. So our support system when it comes to training coaches and the management side of the business, all is provided by corporate, by us. And I think owners, if you ask them, really love that aspect. And that's the number one thing that I wanted to bring to the company was that support system, because I know full well, having been in boutique fitness before, is that an owner is made or broken by not only the staff that they have, but by the support that is lent to them. And so I always vowed that support's got to be there. It doesn't mean everyone's going to make it for whatever reason, but it's certainly not going to be from a lack of support.
How do you balance the digital? The reason I ask this is I think there's some people that really, like my son and daughter, they've just gone back to school today. One of them's great sitting in front and doing Zoom classroom. The other one's terrible, absolutely. And they both really enjoy the face-to-face. They're just so much happier in that environment. I'm probably the same. There's only so long I can sit in front of a Zoom before I'm pulling my hair out, doing other things. So with what you're doing, and my guess is that instructors are quite sort of tactile people, like hugging and all that sort of stuff. How do you train those people in this day and age where you probably can't rely as much as someone like you going into a room like I've seen on YouTube where you're actually getting them standing up and getting them all motivated? The
great thing about a small company as we get larger is it's all personal right now. So as we build out digital, it's something we haven't launched yet, but hopefully by Q4 of this year it will be. But certainly what happens now is we do these 4-day sort of onboarding experiences. So Caitlin on the fitness side, me on the operations side, we go into market and we'll do 2 days each and we'll do full trainings both of those days. It's a lot of experiential type stuff, a ton of role play. Certainly there's some books and some assets that we give them as part of that. And then from that point on, one of the great things I did at F45 that I continue to do at Volofit is simple things like a weekly sales call. It's open to anyone in the franchise. We have general managers, sales associates, trainers. We pick different topics each week. I have one-on-ones with every studio moving forward. And so it's a lot of personal stuff. And it's interesting, when I first got here, that's just the norm for me. When I first got here, I would have some owners go, wow, like the COO is going to call us? Yeah, I'm like, my name's Kory. I'm going to call you up. And I'm going to teach you how to be successful. And whatever resources you need, I'll commit to getting you them. And they were blown away by that. For me, that's just what we do. And so it's interesting, but it comes back to support. And so whatever we land on in terms of a platform and the digital aspect, certainly I've been in big box gyms early in my career where the onboarding for me, literally, which was to sit in front of a computer at a kiosk in the gym where there's music going on, whatever, I'd put in my headphones and I would have to look at like 3 hours of videos. That is not fun to me. And so we don't do that. There will be a little bit of aspect. Mostly what I tell most people, Matt, is the digital platform experience for coaching or training should be a supplement or a support system to what you were doing from a personal level. That's how I view it.
That makes sense. And how would you maintain that quality particularly as you get bigger, and you probably won't have the time to do that all the time? How will you manage to say, well, look, the standard is going to be consistent, or is that something you just have to go back out and revisit and do those 4 days again? Because I suppose there's going to be turnover of quite a few people over that period.
Absolutely. So, certainly monthly or at some point quarterly visits, but it's to build out a performance team, right? So my goal is to build out a team, much like I had at F45. And that's what they do great, is offer support. So for me, it's support. And so I can't be everywhere, all the time. It's really about building out a support system of people that are the boots on the ground that will be deployed, in a sense, to those markets on a monthly basis and do some in-service stuff. Because at the end of the day, that's what people love to do. They love to be people hate the word role play, but they really love it. I mean, listen, everyone always gets something out of role play. And so like the more you do that, whether it's overcoming objections or how to operate something in the studio, that's what people want. And so that's my commitment to help them in terms of being successful.
And do you see that is something, and I don't know a lot about other boutique brands in terms of looking under the hood, but is that training part, do you see that, is that common?
No.
It's not.
Let me cut you off there. No. If you ask me, what does Kory get pissed about in the fitness industry? The lack of coaching, period. And it's evident throughout my career, including myself. Most of what I learned on my own. Fortunately, along the way, like many, probably I had some great people to look up to and people that really took the time. But we're so sales driven. And again, like I get it, right? Like managers and owners go, we need this many sales this week. And so you turn on that panic button and you're like, I don't care about my staff. I'm gonna, not only do I not care about my staff, but if I'm a GM, guess what? I'm not going to empower my staff to call anyone back because I'm afraid they're not going to make the sale. I'm going to do it all. And so the biggest lesson I learned at Lifetime early on in my career was I was probably doing $22,000 in revenue per month, probably one of the leading department heads in the country, but my average staff member was doing $3K. And so if I was being honest with myself, I was not a great coach or a great manager. And I was pretty cocky. I'm from New York, Matt. This is how we talk. But at the end of the day, if I was being honest, I was not a great coach. And I'll never forget, Lifetime sent me away to a weekend. They used to send all their department heads away to a weekend called The Story of Coaching. And I was in New York, it was in New Jersey, right? And I'm like, I gotta drive to Jersey, right? And so I go there for the weekend. I'm like, The Story of Coaching. I was like, this is gonna be absurd and ridiculous and a waste of my time. It was the most profound weekend it was life-changing for me because really I learned how to talk to people and how to motivate people. And it was the complete opposite of what I was normally doing. Normally I'd be like, I'm doing $22,000. What's wrong with you? But what I didn't understand is not too many people do that. And so what we should be focusing on is how do we go from $2,000 that you're doing now to generating $4,000? Because if you could do that over 45 trainers, you're making a hell of a lot of money. So,
and coaching itself then, as well as training then, do you think that's a skill that we do particularly well as an industry? Like you give an example of Lifetime, and as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, yeah, actually, how much time we even training our sales team to be good coaches to build the business. What's your experience on that?
Yeah, if I asked probably 10 general managers in my career, 10 sales associates, and 10 head coaches, what was the last leadership book you read? They would not have an answer. Maybe 2, right? And so I think it starts with that self-worth in terms of what are you doing yourself to not only stay motivated, passionate, but to grow yourself as a manager, GM, owner. So it starts there. And then it's do you have a highly effective schedule? This is something that baffles me in the industry. When you look at how productive a daily schedule is, it is surprising how non-productive it is. If you took an 8-hour day, let's get rid of 1 hour for lunch, you have 7 hours to be productive. Do you know that it's hard-pressed to find someone that could actually account for every single one of those hours as to what they're doing to be productive for that day? And so one of the things I look at is it starts with, do you have a highly productive or effective schedule? Because listen, it doesn't matter if you're great at selling or retaining members, like you just gotta be productive during the day. And that takes on many forms. But so yeah, it starts with the individual. And so I think during that highly effective schedule, you should have built-in time, no matter how much experience you have, to either coach up others or to coach up yourself, whatever that looks like.
Well, that's a great tip. I had a coach many years ago, but that was the thing he said, first thing in the day is your team. That's really where you want to be spending the most of your time. Not that I'm also good at it and I could do with another coaching session, but I think it's some great.
I will tell you, one of the epiphanies for me was I was not forced to do, but my manager at the time was like, I'm going to have all my managers have you do a leadership test. I'm like, cool, awesome. So it was the Strength Finders, the Gallup Strength Finders, very popular one. A lot of Fortune 500 companies do it. And it was surprising to me. I learned what my top 3 leadership skills were: achiever, learner, and focus. And what that meant is that achiever was number 1 for me. I love reaching goals. I am very goal oriented. Now, if my boss knew that, it's easier for him or her to get me to be productive, right? Because what I would do if someone's an achiever is I would set a goal, probably have a great incentive for the month if they reach that goal, and that essentially drives that person. And so for me and us at Volofit, it's one of the things I love to have people do is to self-reflect, understand what their own leadership skills are, because you'll essentially back into being productive.
Yeah, I like that. I remember reading that book, Strengths Finder. The first book was better than the second one, to be honest. But
what is your leadership skill, Matt? That's what I would love to know.
What's my leadership skill? I guess now it's changed quite a bit, because when we started the company, I was in England and I had a huge team. We had nearly 100 people. When I moved to America, I was in my office and everything was done over the phone, which was and then we hit the pandemic after 2 years.
Yep.
So it's really been the first year that I've been able to get in front of people. And I like to be around people. I like to have my time around people, and then the second half of the day, I do the stuff, my own calls and that kind of thing. But
and is there one thing, since we're going to flip the script, I guess I'm the host now, but is there one thing, Matt, that drives you or you're aware of? Because it's kind of what we were talking about, in terms of the experience that you look for when you walk into a place. You've worked out at a million places in the world. Is there something that you always think about when you walk into somewhere? Is it the experience? Is it the look and the feel? Is it the price? Like what drives you? I'd just be curious to know.
It's definitely not the price. For me, smell's a big thing. First thing, I guess the sense of smell is the most the sense that's the closest to the brain.
Yeah.
So I think people that get that are really important, because you don't know what it is, but it's like, you got to get the right scent. I think the scent's a really, really big thing. I think having the sort of sound and lighting is important. But the people. So I think once you've got to having the people that really seem as though they're interested and they care, and you're the center of attention, as opposed to, oh, hang on a minute, I need to fix you up. Same as a restaurant.
Yeah.
I go to restaurants, hotels. I used to around the world a lot, and within a few seconds you can tell whether the food's going to be any good. And a lot of times I think we've sat down at the table and it's like we're going, those signals have come that you don't even want to look what's behind the
You're 100% right.
kitchen.
I got it.
But it's people, I suppose, owners that are running the businesses, and cleanliness and tidiness and organisation, looking behind the little reception. What's it like? Is it organised? Is it in a mess? All those little clues. Are the windows clean? Simple little thing, but or are they just look like they're not been cleaned for a month or something like that?
That's the con to being married to me. My wife will tell you is every time I walk somewhere or into some place, it's in me. I want to see what that experience is like. You mentioned hotels. I always am hyper aware of the experience that you get into hotels, much like yourself. I'm in hotels quite a bit. And so recently, last month, I stayed at a hotel. First time this has actually happened. Later that night, I checked in at like 12 o'clock. Later that night, I went to one of our studios. I get a text message. It says, "Hi, Kory," big with the name. You'd be surprised how many people don't even address you by name. "Hi, Kory, this is Amy. I'm the general manager at the hotel. Just wanted to see if you had any issues checking in. If you need anything, let me know." I'm like, this is unbelievable. I took that text message, walked into our studio. I'm like, this is an experience, right? And so those things stay with me.
And an interesting place, just because I tend to go there quite a bit for events and stuff, is if you go to Vegas and stay in the top one and stay in one of the sort of cheaper ones if you can't get in. And you'll see these hotels, and they've been there for years, and the rooms are a little, they're not great, but you can tell whoever's running them knows exactly what to do. And so the service, the cleanliness, even though it's an old casino, it's every little thing's dialed in. And I think you can, it doesn't have to be the latest and greatest. I think you can go to places where, They're old, they're a little bit dated, but they've got everything dialed in: the cleanliness, the experience, the customer service, and the brand, how the brand looks, and that's obviously why they're still there competing with the brand new ones.
Where do you like to stay in Vegas? See, that's the mark of a great brand. You did not even hesitate, right? That's what I love about great brands. Great brands to me are like, you don't hesitate. It is, I'm staying at the win.
But if you look at what they do, and I'd recommend anyone who's not been there to go there, that they just, everything they do is perfection. And I even tell the story about, I know we're really going off track, but even in the, you can stay to some of the hotels that are all similar level along that area. But when you go into the Wynn, the attention to detail is incredible. And I took a picture of it on the inside of a door, you get these door hinges. And even their door hinges are just so over-engineered. And I sit there, I'm like, someone chose those door hinges that no one's going to see. But you go into any other hotel and they kind of skimp and save on some of those. And I know it costs $2 billion to build the Encore, but you can tell that everything is an exceptional service.
So that's what we're talking. That's the look and the feel. But there's this little shtick I call it a shtick, but it's true. And whenever I would go to present, whether it was a conference or in studio somewhere, I always start off with this Starbucks story I have. And I've told it so many times, I'll give you the shortened version, but the true story is every day I go to Starbucks twice a day, no matter where I'm at. But I don't go for the coffee. And so most people are like, well, Kory, why do you go to Starbucks? And I always tell them I go for the experience. If you think about what happens in a Starbucks, have you ever gone to a Starbucks? Mm-hmm. Right? So people are sitting down. What are they doing sitting down? What do some people do at a Starbucks? What are they doing?
Mainly on their laptops.
They're getting stuff done. They're doing term papers. They're on social media. Like, you can achieve stuff in your life sitting at a table in Starbucks. You then get online and you speak a different language. You don't say, I'll have a medium coffee. You'll say, I'll have a grande pike or a venti macchiato. We don't even call the employees their employees. What do we call them? Do you know?
Baristas.
Exactly. Like, that's a great brand. And so, do I love the coffee? No, it's okay. But the experience alone has me going there twice a day. Yeah. So to that point, door hinges.
So a couple of things before we wrap up then, Kory. So Volofit, tell us a little bit about their plans. It's the fact it's a franchise expansion. Give us a bit of an overview of the business. And if people are interested in finding a new concept, how they can go about doing that.
Yeah, I can't tell you how. Listen, to leave at 45, and I have a lot of great friends there. It's an unbelievable brand. It was a tough decision. I would admit I probably cried at some point, but it was an opportunity to come somewhere where I could have a little bit of a footprint as to what that experience looks like. And so first and foremost, I think the brand itself, obviously we're spawned from Tough Mudder. So there's some great brand recognition there. It's Volofit by Tough Mudder, essentially. And so that was an attraction for me. I can't lie and say, I'm passionate about the Tough Mudder brand even previously. And so that's first and foremost. But what we've been able to do in studio, I like to think that it's just the best of everything, I feel like. Now, I know everyone says that, I get it. But I have been with some of the top brands in the entire world over a 30-year career. So I like to think I have some street cred in the industry. And so for me, I think we've just nailed it. I think, honestly speaking, the look and the feel, like we talked about, the programming is unbelievable. And certainly Caitlin is one of the best in the industry. And just the ability to have that onboarding experience, and that comes back to the staffing. And then the support that we're providing them. Just everything is in place. And so it's great. We now have studios in Minnesota, Arizona. We're opening up in Oregon, which is where I'm headed this week. We have 2 new studios opening up in the next 2 months in Pittsburgh and North Carolina. Then it's Florida, about 10 to 15 locations there, 10 to 15 locations in North Carolina. And so for me, it's just been an unbelievable ride to this point, but so much more to come. And so Volofit, obviously volo/fit.com is the easiest way. Certainly you can go onto our Instagram page, which is at Volofit. And certainly for me, it's at KoryFit. But at the end of the day, it's really about just helping the brand build what that experience looks like. So I can't be more excited about it.
And we will put in some links into the show notes and emails, but you've also got your own YouTube channel where you put out a ton of great content for people in the fitness industry, from sales to referrals, a lot of stuff we've talked about today. You go into quite a lot more detail, so I'll put some links on there for people to check you out.
I've never been afraid to talk about myself, certainly, but fortunately, it's not about me. It's about just the people that make up, right? Just like in any business. I think we have an incredible staff. I think we have a staff that understands the business. They've been battle tested, certainly. That's big for me. It's not the end all be all, like I said, but it is important to me. Especially Caitlin, who was with Orange Theory for decades. And so, yeah, that's great. Certainly for me, though, it is about just every aspect of the business. And so if you could pick up anything or any aspect of the business, that's a win for me, whether it's watching a YouTube video or listening to a podcast, or that's what drives me and what motivates me and hopefully others.
All right. So final question, Kory. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you've believed is impossible and gone on to make it possible. What would be a memorable example of escaping your own personal limits?
So my own personal limits is when I created a fitness product. I was able to kind of sell it on QVC and some other cool outlets.
What was it?
It was called, so do you remember the Perfect Push-Up?
Yes.
I wish that was my product. Certainly you're in the equipment business, so you would understand it. I created, as a trainer in my early career, I would use the Perfect Push-Up, but I would get pissed, Matt, because this product was making $50 million. I'm like, this is so simple. And so as a trainer, we would turn the Bosu ball over a lot and we would do the unstable push-ups for the core. And so I invented two sort of perfect push-up-like pieces of equipment, but instead of a flat bottom, they were rounded and it had a little bit of a Bosu ball on the bottom. So they were a little bit more engaging when you would do a push-up or mountain climbers, but they were also weighted like a dumbbell. So it was I like to think, a lot more functional than a perfect push-up. And so I thought I was going to be the next millionaire. And what I learned is it was a very tough business. And there was a time that I thought I was a failure. And, what I learned was that I needed to just, slow my roll a little bit, reevaluate, and understand that that's not the end all be all. And so for me, it was about escaping my limits, that it was so narrow-minded to think that one failure would define who I am. And it's a cliche, but no one gets defined by one thing. So for me, it was about stepping outside the box, putting myself out there, learning other responsibilities, and not being afraid to just get out there again. And so I think that was the biggest lesson I learned.
That's a great lesson. It's one that I guess when we do fail and we think we've got the greatest idea, you can question yourself and I suppose there's a lot of people probably even going in that now where they're changing careers. But sometimes, like a lot of the stuff you do, you're presenting, you're training, you're fantastic at it. And I suppose that may not have happened had it been.
So it's a blessing in disguise, right? So I wouldn't be where I am today, fortunately, which is where I want to be. If that never happened. But when I was going through that, a mentor of mine said, and this always sticks with me now, and I think it's apropos for what we were talking about, which is to fail fast. That's my motto. So I'm going to screw up. I'm going to mess up. That's just the way it is. And so is a lot of other people in our company and our staff and at every business. But can you do it fast and move on? And so my biggest lesson was failing fast. Fail, learn from it, move on, and get moving.
Yeah. Well, it's a great value in there today, Kory. Thank you so much. We'll have to get you back because I've run out of time for my questions, but hopefully we'll be seeing each other again soon.
Always a pleasure, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.